Hey guys, it's Seneca. Welcome back to the Green Sofa. Today I have a bone to pick with the state of Alabama. So listen, I've got a lot of notes. Let's just go ahead and get started. So the Alabama Senate has passed the most restrictive abortion bill in an effort to overthrow Roe v. Wade. So the governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, has signed a bill outlawing abortions in the state of Alabama and making it a crime to have an abortion even if the pregnancy was caused by rape or incest. Now, before I can get to the ridiculousness of this Human Life Protection Act, you got to understand Roe v. Wade, so I'm going to give you a little bit of history about Roe v. Wade. So, Roe v. Wade was a landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court in which the courts ruled that the 14th Amendment, the clause, what clause was that? The due process clause of the 14th Amendment gives women rights, right? Rights to privacy. And it also says that a woman has the liberty to choose whether or not she wants to have an abortion. Now, it also says that those rights are not absolute and that they must be balanced with the government interest to protect women's health and to also protect the life of the child. Now, the way the courts resolve those rights are basically tying those health regulations to the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. So, in the first trimester, which is conception to the end of the 12th week, abortions could not be prohibited at all. In the second trimester, which is 13 weeks to 26 weeks, it says that reasonable health regulations could be put into place. And then the last trimester, which is 27 to the end of pregnancy, it says that abortions could be prohibited entirely as long as it made exceptions for women where women needed the abortion, say like there was an ectopic pregnancy or lethal anomaly, basically to save the life of the mother, which is understandable, right? Now, what I find so disturbing, so grossly appalling about this law is that it makes no provisions for women who have been victims of rape or incest. Because the whole point of this law is to basically say that a fetus is a person with rights, right? Now, whether you believe that life begins at conception, when there's a heartbeat detected, or when the child is born, is not my argument today. I believe that all life is precious. But I also believe that in the case of rape or incest, that it's not the woman's fault, it's not the child's fault, but it is her decision. And for you to take away that fundamental right for her to choose whether or not to keep the child or to terminate the pregnancy is just ludicrous to me. You don't have that right. In essence, it's victimizing the victim. This is double victimization to say that this woman who has been traumatized and victimized has to now keep this child. But hey, you know, some people say something different. Now, not only is, let me tell you how ridiculous this whole law is. First of all, a woman who chooses to leave the state of Alabama to have an abortion somewhere else can be prosecuted and sent to jail for up to 10 years for having an abortion when she returns to the state of Alabama. Oh, and it gets even better. The doctor who performs the abortion can face up to 99 years in prison. So you mean to tell me that the rapist could get less time than the woman who was victimized and the doctor who choose to perform the abortion? Listen, it's crazy in every sense of the word. But when you look at the demographics of the 25 Republican lawmakers who voted in favor of this abortion bill, they are all white men. Is anybody else surprised? Because I'm not. And I don't understand how we are making definitive decisions about a woman's reproductive rights, about her reproductive health, and we're not even consulting with women. Like, the individuals who are making this decision are not even reflective of the population it's going to affect. Crazy. To me, this is the epitome of white supremacist, patriarchal, misogynistic bullshit. I said it. Now, the last time I checked, vasectomies are not a felony. There are no laws regulating what a man can do with his health, his body, or his penis. But for some reason, we are hell-bent on regulating a woman's womb. I don't get it. Now listen, let's just be honest. Abortions have been happening way before Roe v. Wade, okay? This is nothing new. A lot of times when they were happening, they were very inhumane. They were very harmful to the women who were choosing to have these DIY abortions, right? Because they had no other access to healthy abortions, which is just crazy to me. But you know, when you have a toddler in chief in office and his homeboy Kavanaugh, who once said birth control was an abortion-inducing drug. I mean, come on now. The silliness of all this stuff. Listen, you can't even make this stuff up. And Kavanaugh also said that a sitting president should not be civilly sued or indicted. But this is clearly an indictment against women's reproductive health. Listen, I don't know what to say. Listen. All of us were born with an innate ability to make decisions for ourselves. It is called free will. Now, this was not given to us by man. It was given to us by God himself. I know what most people are going to say, especially Christians. Yeah, Seneca, well, God is all-knowing, all-loving. He's all-benevolent. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He is the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the great I am. Listen, he's all of those things. But what God is not is a free will violator. He will basically protect your free will all the way to hell, because violating your free will would be violating his word. And he magnifies his word above his name. So he just not going to do it. I don't care who it is. Now listen, don't take my word for it. Read your Bible, okay? The Bible says, let us make man in our image, in our own likeness, and let them have dominion. Well, what is dominion? Dominion means sovereignty. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty means control, meaning let them have control over what the hell they want to do with their own reproductive systems. Let them have control of what they want to do with their life, their bodies. It is not up to you. Good, bad, right or wrong, indifferent, it does not matter. It is ultimately the woman's decision at the end of the day. I just had to make sure we were clear on that. Now, I'm already over here now. So, if God is this absolute supreme being who has no interest in violating your free will, then what makes you, Alabama Senate, think you have the right or the audacity to put legal ramifications around a woman's reproductive health and what she should do with her body? It's wrong on all levels. It's just wrong. And like I said, why are we writing these things in the Constitution if we are not enforcing the Constitution? And you know what? While I'm on the subject of ungodly atrocities happening right here in the U.S., let's talk about Flint, Michigan. Let's talk about how there are still young children who are dying every day because of unsanitary and polluted water conditions. Let's talk about all of the unarmed black boys and black men who are being gunned down every day at the hands of supremacist, racist, cowardice white cops. Let's talk about children at the border who are being torn from their families and detained in cages like animals. You know what? Let's talk about the women in El Salvador who are being imprisoned, put in jail for having miscarriages and stillborns. I mean, is anyone not appalled other than me? This is absolutely crazy. And it's crazy to me that we are more concerned about the rights of a fetus in the womb, and we don't give a damn about the rights of children once they're out of the womb, once they're walking around this world. Anybody else flabbergasted? Now, The fact that this law makes no exceptions for women who have been victims of rape or incest, listen, is sickening. It just makes me sick to my stomach. When you look at the numbers, every 98 seconds here in America, someone is sexually assaulted. That equates to roughly 570 individuals a day. 90% of rape victims are women. 99% of individuals who are arrested for rape are men. Hello, is anyone putting two and two together here? And you know what? Girls between the ages of 16 and 19 are 4 times more likely to be victimized, to be victims of sexual violence than the general population. We're talking about kids, right? These are children. Now, what I'm sure they're not telling you is that almost 6,000 Native Americans every year report sexual violence. 6,000. But nobody's talking about the Native Americans, because I'm sure in your history books, the only thing, you were told about Native Americans is, you were taught about the turkey and feathers and dances with wolves, and you heard about some guy named Christopher Columbus who, sailed here in 1492 and discovered America, when actually he was lost, like this country. We're very lost right now. It just gets crazier and crazier. You know what? And while we're on the subject of pasty pill perpetrators, let me tell you some of the craziness that some of our lawmakers, people in politics, are saying, right? Particularly white men. Clayton Williams, Republican of Texas, said, "Rape is kind of like the weather. If it's inevitable, just relax and enjoy it." Really? Todd Aiken said, "If it's a legitimate rape, I didn't know that rape was legitimate these days. I don't know what dictionary he's looking in, but I didn't know rape was legitimate." He says, "The female body has a way of shutting that thing down." Listen, I can't make this shit up. I really can't. Rick Santorum says, "Rape victims should make the best of a bad situation." A bad situation, that's what we're calling rape these days? Richard Murdoch, here's a good one. "Even when life begins in this horrible situation of rape, that is something that God intended to happen." Now listen, I don't know what book you're reading from, but my Bible, I would never serve a God who intends for rape to happen. I don't believe God intends for women to be violated. That is simply crazy. You know what? And the last one, Lawrence Lockman said, "If a woman has a right to have an abortion, why should a man be free to use his superior strength to force himself on a woman? At least a rapist's pursuit of sexual freedom doesn't in most cases result in anyone's death." Listen, she might not suffer a physical death, but sometimes spiritual and emotional and psychological death is even more harmful. I know a lot of women who are walking around here still dealing with the trauma of sexual assault even to this day, who were victimized when they were little girls, who were victimized when they were grown women. And listen, it takes a lot to get through that. So to say that it's okay for men to force themselves on women because at least they survive, it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. But when we have a leader of the free world, toddler-in-chief, Mr. Grab him by the pussy, his words, not mine. When he says things like this, when we have a leader who has been accused of sexually assaulting over 20 women and we just turn a blind eye to that because he's a great businessman, listen, we have our priorities in the wrong place. If you want to know the greatest threat to America, it's not abortion clinics. It's white men, okay? If you look at the statistics for mass shootings here in America, let's just take the last 20 years. Just look at the mass shootings. It is alarmingly white men, okay? But Everybody's trying to put regulations around a woman's reproductive health, but we're not really looking at the real problem. Let me tell you something. Christopher Columbus, since we're on the subject of white men here, Christopher Columbus brought more to this country than the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. He brought with him rape culture. He brought with him disease. He brought with him murder. And it's just crazy. So what's happening in Alabama is nothing more than a precursor to what is happening all over this great nation. If you look at abortion statistics, okay, 37% of the women having abortion are white. 37% of women having abortions are black. You have 19% who are Hispanic and the 7% other, right? Now, I was watching the news with my mother the other day, and I saw a headline come across the news, and it said 42% of the population here in Houston is Hispanic and 31% white. So then I started thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute, let me do the numbers here. If Hispanics are having the least amount of abortions, and they are growing exponentially, much faster than the white population, much faster than the black population. Oh, okay. So this whole abortion bill is way more than trying to regulate our reproductive health. This is all about self-preservation of the white community. This is all about self-preservation of white supremacy. If you look at the numbers around the fertility issues with white women, they have the lowest fertility among any U.S. state. So if you think about it, if they are having abortions at 37%, pretty high, and I would suspect the number could be higher because a lot of times they don't call it abortions, they call it DNC. Do your homework. And they're having the lowest fertility, then that means, yeah, we need to get rid of these abortions so they can continue to populate, because at this rate, this nation is going to look very melanated pretty soon. So I get it now. When I was doing this research, you know what it made me think about? It made me think about the color purple. Follow me, okay? People are like, oh my God, what are you talking about, the color purple? Here you have Celie, right? Who, in the beginning of the story, she's writing a letter to God. She has just had her second child by her father, who has been sexually abusing her since she was a child. And now she's sold to Mr. Now Mr. has her. And he's been abusing her sexually, raping her, treats her like shit, right? Violates her often. He is mentally abusive, verbally abusive, physically abusive, sexually abusive. And I'm like, wow, this kind of reminds me of America. Yeah. So it kind of reminds me of America. And here she meets some other women along the journey. I remember she met Sophia, and they make this quilt together, and she's introduced to Shug, who is this prominent woman, and she's beautiful, and Celia has always thought she was ugly. I know y'all remember that part. You show is ugly, but listen, and now she finds these letters that Mr. has been hiding from her all these years. So every day she's reading these beautiful letters by her sister Nettie, right? Who is now in Africa raising her children and raising Celie's children. And as she's reading these letters, she's building more confidence in herself, right? She's building more confidence. And I know you guys remember the scene where she's shaving Mr., right? And the music is playing because you see the back and forth between her and the tribal things in Africa. And so you hear the music, oh yay. That's my absolute favorite part, right? And she's getting ready to slice Mr.'s throat. And here Miss Shug comes, and she's like, oh, Miss Celie, I think that razor's dull. Listen, Shug would have been 2.5 seconds too late had it been me, but I digress. But anyway, you have these women who have joined together and who have made a beautiful life for themselves. They are now entrepreneurs. Miss Celie becomes a pants maker. I know Suge Nice goes on to marry a nice guy, and she's doing well, and Miss Sophia, all of them, right? These women who have been sexually violated, who have been physically abused, sounds familiar? Who have been going through all this mistreatment are now banding together. And so I think what is happening nowadays is a clarion call for women. This is a clarion call for us. This is our time. See, most people would view this as an obstacle. I see it as an opportunity for women to really band together, like the women in The Color Purple, and really let our voices be heard. In 2014, women came out in record numbers. 6.5 million came to the polls, right? In 2018, that number nearly doubled to like 11.5 million. Listen, we have to continue to do that. One of the last things about The Color Purple is, if you notice, Celie associated The Color Purple with royalty, right? And we are royalty. Women, we are royalty. We are The Color Purple right now. And this is our time to really band together and let our voices be heard. At the very end, Suge says something to Celie. She said, you know, I believe God is pissed off when you pass by a field of purple and you ignore it. Well, guess what? We are that color purple. Time out for women being ignored. Time out for women being mistreated. Time out for women being objectified and used as rag dolls for someone else's pleasure. Time out for it. We are taking our reproductive rights back. We are letting our voices being heard because we are that color purple. Listen, we're going to have some amazing things coming up. Listen, I want to be one of the first to start leading this charge around saving our reproductive health, saving our reproductive rights. I'll have some more information coming to you guys, but listen, at the end of the day, it is a woman's choice, not yours. So keep your goddamn hands off my vagina. This is the Green Sofa. Talk to you next time.